Oh, whoops. Don't want that. We want this microphone. Oops.
Let's get rid of the blooper.
There we go. Do you want to see us or no?
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome back to the podcast. Hi.
Hi. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here
Me too.
and to be able to continue sharing our evolution of our gut health journey. So in the last episode, we left off where we went to the naturopath who helped us understand that all of our son's symptoms were connected to a gut imbalance. In this episode, I want you to share your perspective, what those first 2.5 years were like from the time that we rebalanced our second child's gut to fast forward a couple years, we had our third baby and our fourth baby. And when our fourth was 4 months old, he started showing many of the same symptoms. I want to fill in that time.
So I think when you went to see the naturopath, we were both at a point where something had to change. And it was the first time that somebody had said, this is what's wrong. Let's heal this.
Yes, he was the first person to ever acknowledge and validate what I always knew, which is that all of our son's symptoms were connected to one root cause. And by this point, our son is 2.5. We've been fighting so hard for 2.5 really long and hard years.
And so we started the protocol that the naturopath gave us. And I think there was a learning curve with it. We needed to understand what was happening, how it worked.
Right.
How
he sent us away with a bag of supplements that are equivalent to what you can now find in my children's gut rebalance kit. But at the time, this was all totally foreign to us. We had never heard of silver as a supplement. You know, he gave us probiotics and told us how to take them and gave us a list of foods to avoid, which quite honestly was a real breath of fresh air because up to this point we had been on every elimination diet. And so this small handful of foods that he said to avoid felt really easy. So we strictly followed what he told us to do, but we had so much to learn. I am always very sensitive about what I give our children and our family. And I had to do a lot of asking questions as far as the silver supplement went.
I think both of us had a lot of, I don't know if trepidation's the word, but we didn't know enough about it. There's rumors always around.
Right. So if we search the safety of giving your child a silver supplement, there's not a lot of good that comes up.
Yeah.
There was a lot of scary stories. And so I had to ask a lot of questions. And finally though, we are at this point where we can either trust what this naturopath is telling us and what he's given us. And he clearly has confidence in what he's doing. He is a very well-known naturopath. His wait list was many, many, many months long. And the only reason we got in was because we were on a cancellation list. And we either had to just go all in and fully trust his guidance or keep spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
And what he was offering us felt more in alignment.
Because it wasn't just a tool to mask the symptoms. It was fixing the problem.
Yes, it was healing his body.
Healing the problem. And that was the one thing that nobody had been willing to help us with. And so it was, although we were still scared, it was still all scary. We were still in the middle of it. The start of it was still just the middle of it. Because there's this phase where it just takes time. Things take time to heal, especially after that long of him having an imbalance. there was a lot of a lot of supplements that needed to be taken to help heal him.
Yeah, it took 2.5 years. His imbalance had been evolving and getting worse for 2.5 years. And so the healing process, a lot of times when I'm sharing our story, it's easy for me to forget how long the healing process really takes, because my memory says, oh my gosh, we found out what was wrong. We introduced these supplements and he healed. And that's the true story. I'm always being very truthful and transparent, but it's easy to forget the amount of time that healing really takes. Yeah. It takes commitment and dedication.
And there's a big period of we didn't have a real true guidebook of what to do. We took the supplements, but then we'd go out to eat and have something that at the time we didn't maybe realize would affect Aki in a negative way and kind of push him back a little bit.
Right.
And so there was a constant 3 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, and we were always moving in the right direction. But there was always these back and forth periods. So it was hard at the time because we were still stuck inside of it. But the change in even just his skin or his
poop. His poop seems to always be the first thing to heal. That sour smell goes away. It becomes regular. It's not diarrhea or constipation. It's really regular. And so his poop healed, and he had healthy poops for the first time in his life. And I remember feeling so happy about that, but his skin wasn't healing as fast. And so I would question it, and every day I was evaluating him, and I was taking really detailed notes about his sleep and his poop and what he was eating. And I was very, very diligent, and I was constantly monitoring it so that I could make connections. But what I have since learned is that healing is this beautiful thing that happens over time. And while there's value in being really in tune with what's going on and making those connections, you almost have to take a step back a little bit to evaluate the healing from a bird's eye view.
Well, I think you talk about this gut health on a spectrum, right? You're very rarely are you one end or the other.
Sure.
Right? You're somewhere in between.
Your gut bacteria fluctuates
right?
all the
and
time.
That healing phase, we were really bouncing around within that. And then ultimately, let's move forward a little bit. After taking the supplements for a while.
A long while.
And doing a rebalance protocol several times.
Several
if I
times,
remember right.
Yes.
We finally felt like he was moving in. He was really healed.
He started sleeping all night. He potty trained himself in that period. He started feeling really confident in his body.
He could sleep not nursing all night long.
Yes.
That's when he started sleeping.
He decided he wanted to move into a bed with our daughter, and it was all child led. He decided to do all of this, but he just had this whole new demeanor to him. He was very calm and peaceful. And he was craving healthy foods. I mean, this is over time, but from the day we stepped into that naturopath's office and learned that his symptoms were connected to a gut imbalance to when I would say he was fully healed, he was a completely different child. Yeah. And it gives me kind of goosebumps to think back on it. But I don't know if this is true for you, but I share about this a lot, that I blocked it from my memory. I remember, though, we were traveling and we made a pretty strong community of friends while traveling, and everyone we met, I was always asking, have you seen a rash like this? What should I do? What do you think?
Half of them are nurses. And,
yes.
They're
have
medical
you ever
professionals.
Seen poop like this?
Yeah.
And so we made a strong community of friends, and when we finally healed his body, everybody was very interested in what we had done. What was wrong? What did we do? And a lot of people were interested in the supplements. So I was going to our naturopath's office and I was sending them supplements. But over time, I let this whole experience fade from my mind.
Mm-hmm.
We had lived in survival mode for 2.5 years and it beat us down.
Yeah.
And being able to leave it in our past was a really beautiful blessing.
Yeah.
But before we move on to that part, something I want to touch on is, I don't know if you remember this. So we did like one gut rebalancing cycle for Aki. We saw great improvements. He is not to this place that we're talking about where he was fully healed. His sleep was still a little restless, but we saw such great improvements that what we were seeing in him felt amazing.
Yeah.
Because it was so much better than where he had been. And so we completed one full gut rebalancing cycle. So that's a 64-day rebalance. And one of the foods that are really important that you avoid while rebalancing the gut is wheat. Wheat feeds the bad bacteria and yeast in the gut. So we strictly avoided it for those 64 days. And then we went and celebrated. I remember we were renting this little apartment in Bozeman because I was pregnant with our third. And we parked our Airstream for a little bit so we could have our third baby. And we went to the market and we bought an organic loaf of sourdough bread to celebrate Aki's healing.
It sounds so ridiculous now.
I know, but this is a real thing. I get this question a lot from mamas.
Yeah, we thought we were done. To a certain extent, we thought we were done.
And even when I share like this gut healing protocol with moms, like you have to avoid wheat while rebalancing the gut.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot, what about sourdough? And I remember asking the naturopath that question. And so when we thought we were done, we had done it. We made it. We celebrated with sourdough because that was what we missed the most. And his symptoms quickly came back on. So we were done with supplements. We introduced wheat and his rash was back. He was breastfeeding throughout the night.
That's what I remember the most, is rash coming back so aggressively.
So aggressively. And his poop started smelling sour. And that's when I went back to the naturopath and I said, I don't know what happened. Like, I thought we were done. Is he going to battle with this for his whole life? And that's when it became very clear to us that healing is a process and it takes time. And we were just at the beginning of his healing. And I also vividly remember emailing this naturopath in the wee hours of the night. Are you sure that it's okay that he's still taking the silver? Are you sure he can do a whole nother rebalancing cycle? Because it was just so unfamiliar to us and I just needed so much reassurance. Yeah. And I was pregnant with our third, and so we also had a midwife, and I remember asking the midwife, like, what are your thoughts on this, on a silver supplement? She's like, oh, I sell it right here. I have it on my shelf. Like, I love silver. And it happened to be the exact same brand that we were getting from our naturopath. And so with time, I gained confidence and trust in the silver supplement.
For sure.
And okay, now I want to fast forward a little bit. So we gained confidence and trust in healing, in this healing process, and we committed. We cut sourdough out permanently. Which I want to go into that in a little bit, because this is a big part, is the whole food component can be really intimidating to people. Sure. And saying you've got to cut wheat out forever is not practical. And maybe that doesn't have to be the case for everybody. But through our experience, we just learned that we do best without wheat.
And there's other things out there that make really good bread.
Yes.
Really good sourdough bread.
Yes. So, and I always encourage mamas and our family to, anytime that you are avoiding a food, it's really important and powerful to focus on the opportunities that's opening up for you, not what you are missing and what you are lacking. And so
that goes with life.
Totally.
If we're all thinking about the things that we don't have, we will always be dissatisfied. But if you're always, or try to be grateful for the things that you have, or the opportunities that you have, life is 1,000 times better.
Yes. And so being wheat free has opened up so much for us.
Yeah.
We've had the opportunity to learn about ancient grains and travel to wheat free cafes. And it is so exciting and satisfying when you find something. And honestly, it gives you a different level of appreciation. Don't you think? Like, I appreciate our organic sourdough kamut bread way more.
Well, it's precious.
It's
I
precious.
think that's why.
That's
it's
it.
precious.
That's a good word.
And it's not just... you could do it every day, I guess, if you had a lot of extra time. But but it becomes precious. And honestly, that's probably the healthiest thing, just like everything else. Like, if it's in moderation, most things are pretty good.
Yes. Sometime we're going to talk about kamut. And I've got to write down the episodes that we're creating just by our conversations. But kamut should be, an ancient grain should be a podcast episode, because this is another question I get asked. I see that you're cooking with kamut. Can we do that during the rebalance? And my honest answer is I would wait.
Yeah.
I would fully heal the gut and then slowly introduce and experiment. Because
should we talk about like what you do once you've gone through, like, healed, and then what that actually means? Like,
yeah.
So,
that's a great
like,
idea.
maintenance moving forward. Like, because we still take silver every day.
Okay.
Right?
I think you're going in a fantastic direction, but I think that's a little bit further on in our journey, because we didn't understand that still
that's true.
When we fully healed Aki.
Right.
So his healing took many months. Then we had our third baby. We hit the road again. We traveled for a long while, came back home to have our fourth baby.
Yeah.
We're traveling again. Do you remember where we were? I'm just wondering.
Tofino.
Oh yeah, you do remember.
Yeah.
We were on the West Coast.
I know. I remember this specifically because you hadn't had any wheat since Aki, probably. And I would indulge.
Because I was
You were
breastfeeding.
breastfeeding the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would indulge occasionally on something that really spoke to me. And so we're in Tofino. We're camped in the wilderness. It's a national park there. So we're on the ocean. There's wolves and bears. It's magical. It's unbelievable. And there's this little town that has a vegan bakery. What are the odds that there's a little coffee shop that has plant-based donuts, which happen to be a favorite of mine? So I go and I have a donut. I think I had 2 that first time. And then I brought home half a dozen.
Ty is the sweet tooth king.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you really quickly. So we learned that our child thrives not eating wheat. So as a family, we decided to not eat wheat. Like
Right.
Ty was saying, he would but I never had the temptation to try wheat. I saw how it impacted our son, and I was either pregnant or breastfeeding for many years to follow. And so I strictly avoided it because I was way too scared that it would have the same impact on our children.
Yeah.
So we're in Tofino. Ty finds these.
They were spectacular. I mean,
he said they were the best donuts he'd ever had.
They were. I still stand by that. And so I brought some home thinking, okay, this is an opportunity to really indulge and give Sarah a treat. And so I think you had half a donut. I don't even think you could finish the
I
full
couldn't
donut.
even finish one.
Yeah.
So he brought me this beautiful box of love home. We sat, like, we're camped in this.
We waited until the kids were asleep.
Yes. We're camped in this lush forest with this mossy ground. And it's like on a cliffside and the ocean is right below us. I remember sitting outside and just being like, oh my gosh, I have not eaten something like this in many, many, many years. And it was too much and I couldn't finish it. So Ty finished it for me. And not even a day and a half later,
We were still in Tofino. We hadn't left.
We hadn't left yet.
And he started.
Baby, who was 4 months old, little birdie, broke out in this rash. And
full body rash.
It took us a couple days to kind of piece it together. Like, we had been crawling in the sand. We'd been in the ocean.
It was really damp.
It was humid.
Yeah,
like,
we
oh my
found
gosh.
some mold in the trailer at one point. Like, there were several things that could have been other indicators.
Yes.
But
and remember, so how old was Aki when Bird was born? How many years? I mean, we are at least 2.5 years.
More than that.
Of Aki's gut being healed.
I think it's
3 years.
At least 3.
So
I would say 3 years.
Okay, so Aki's been fully healed for 3 years by this point. I've not thought about his experience. I've blocked it from my mind. You know how you do that? Like, it's just like natural human preservation. Like, you go through something really hard and you can close that door when you make it past.
Yeah.
And we had closed that door. So when Birdie developed this rash, it took us a little while to piece it together. We were exploring everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, we left Tofino. We took a ferry from Vancouver Island to Washington. We were finally, I want to say we were in Boise, Idaho. And I was like, something is really wrong. We've got to go see a naturopath. Boise. So I found a naturopath. We went in and she's like, this is for sure a reaction to mold. You got to like tear your Airstream apart, top to bottom, find mold and get rid of it. Here is like $700 worth of detoxing supplements. You take them, have your child take them. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. Yes, let's do it. So we kind of started the whole process again. And there was a tiny spot of mold under one of the mattresses. And so we replaced that mattress. We did the supplements, nothing changed.
Well, because we were right back in it. We once again were experiencing this panic and fear that only parents can understand, I think. And
we're not sleeping.
Yeah.
Except now it feels even worse because we have 4 children.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
everything is heightened. And in the midst of it, we are living in our Airstream, and we would meet with 4 other families once a year to do what we called roam school. We would meet for a month of homeschool. We would travel around a certain area together, and we were meeting in City of Rocks, Idaho. And so we stopped at that naturopath on our way to City of Rocks. And I remember it was the exact same thing. You know, some of our friends were nurses, some of them, you know, they all have these amazing extensive backgrounds. And I'm saying, have you seen this before? What do I do? What do I do? And looking back, I just cannot believe that it took so long for it to click and sink in. So we did the whole mold protocol, the detox, nothing changed. His symptoms were evolving. He wasn't sleeping. He had really bad reflux. All of a sudden, he was really fussy and screaming all the time. And his rash was even more horrendous than our second child had been. I've never in my life seen skin like our baby's skin was. And I remember we were in City of Rocks. I was holding Birdie in the baby carrier, bouncing him while I made dinner. And I looked down and he's tugging his ear, and the back of his ear is just covered in scabs. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh. You were outside talking to some of the other dads, and I called you and I said, babe, could this be a gut imbalance like Aki had? And we just kind of sat on it and we were like, there's no way that it could just be that simple again. There's no way that 2 of our kids could go through this.
Yeah.
And we figured we had nothing to lose. So I called the naturopath. I ordered the supplements. They sent them to us. We went through the whole protocol, and he healed really quickly because he had only been struggling with this imbalance for maybe a month by this point.
Yeah, he hadn't had his full life of imbalance to make it so that it was so much harder to balance his gut again.
And it's the same thing. His poop healed really quickly. It went from smelling really sour and full of mucus to a regular breastfed baby. You know, he was exclusively breastfeeding and he had healthy poops. And it took some time for his skin to heal. His skin was so dry and chapped and itchy. Yeah. So I would mix, you know, a silver topical gel with castor oil every night. I made this like concoction in my hand and I would just drench his whole body in it because his skin was so dry. That castor oil combined with the silver gel just like was the magic. Yeah. And so we healed Birdie, and that was really when a flip switched for us. Yeah. Of realizing.
Because once something works one time, you go, okay, that's pretty cool. But I mean,
that's great that it worked.
Yeah. But then when you see something work 2 times, you go, well, this is, I mean, there's no second guessing it anymore. This is absolutely
remarkable
and has changed the life of our family and our 2 boys.
2 times.
Yeah.
And so that gets us up to healing Birdie and our opportunity of getting to dive into gut health 2 times. But at this point, we really don't know a whole lot about gut health.
No.
I don't like it still was, you know, Birdie's imbalance was triggered by that wheat, but I can look back and he had small patches of eczema before that wheat.
Yeah.
The wheat was really just what
is a catalyst that really ignited it.
Yeah. Like there were other subtle things I think from birth, but I would still say he was thriving.
Yeah.
But consuming that wheat and him getting it through my milk just lit his imbalance on fire. And so I think this is where we should wrap this episode up. I think next week I want to share from healing Birdie to deciding that we need to share this with the world and how that all came to fruition and fruition.
Yeah, fruitation is something different.
What's that?
I think that's a made-up word.
Oh, well, that's part of the podcast. I make up words all the time.
Nice.
So
fruition.
Fruitation.
Okay. Fruition. Either one works.
How we got to launching Only, and then there's going to be a 4th one. The evolution of starting a gut health company and where that has us today and how much it has changed our family and deepened our knowledge on gut health and what our gut health maintenance protocol looks like today. You brought that up earlier and it's really important. It's a huge part of our life now, but even up to healing Birdie, we didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
And so thanks for being here.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you again next week.
Okay.